This is my friend Joe. He just signed for our hometown club Lincoln City in 2025. But Football Manager thinks he was born in 2125, which means Joe won't start aging until he's born, which means he's about to play over 100 straight seasons. Joe could win 50 Ballon d'Ors, conquer Europe and become football's first immortal legend. Or he could spend a century on the bench, never kicking a football. So how many Ballon d'Ors will he actually win? Comment A, B, C or D down below and we'll reveal the answer at the end. When creating Joe, I set his current ability to be a leading League One advanced forward, and let the game choose his attributes. So as you can see, he's a pacey finisher. I've also given him the maximum potential ability, so he can be the next Messi for the next century. Interestingly, the game can't decide how old he is, as on his player profile he's 14, but on the squad screen he's 100. Something tells me we might be breaking the game here a little bit. Whatever age he is, he's a starter for Lincoln City in Season 1. Across the season, Joe played 43 times for the Imps and scored 15 goals. Not a bad return at all. However, he did underperform his XG by 3. So he certainly needs to work on his composure and decision making. I'll forgive him as he's technically not been born yet. He helps Lincoln to a playoff spot. Despite scoring twice past Huddersfield in the semi-finals, Lincoln do lose 7-5 on aggregate and miss out on promotion to the Championship. There's also something very strange starting to happen with Joe. A lot of his attributes have dropped by 1. Like dribbling, finishing and decisions. In fact, he's seen a net loss of 22 attribute points across the season. But weirdly, his current ability has risen from 116 to 128. I'm not really sure how that happens, but given Joe isn't meant to be born for another 99 years, I just don't think the game quite knows how to handle it. Over the summer, there was a lot of interest in Joe from clubs in England and around Europe. But in the end, Joe chose Bristol City in the Championship, signing for £9.5 million and scoring 10 goals in 31 starts. I asked him why on earth he chose to go to Bristol City when he could have gone to clubs like Fiorentina, Porto or Ajax. Well, Joe told me it was because he wouldn't be able to watch his favourite TV shows. Bit of a weird reason, but I told him he doesn't need to worry about that if he just gets NordVPN. A VPN keeps you safe online by hiding your IP address and encrypting your traffic, making it way harder for your activity to be tracked. In just the last week, NordVPN has blocked over 1,000 trackers from collecting my personal data. But NordVPN does way more than that. Their Threat Protection Pro feature is a powerful antivirus tool that blocks fake websites that host scams and phishing attacks, as well as scanning all your downloads for hidden malware. NordVPN also scans the dark web to see if any of your data has been stolen and put up for sale, so that you can take action to keep your accounts safe. It's happened to me on multiple occasions, so NordVPN has been a lifesaver. And of course, a VPN can change your virtual location. So Joe can set NordVPN to any country he wants, so he can watch region-locked content from anywhere on the globe. You can save 74% and get a NordVPN for as little as £2.30 a month on a 2-year plan by scanning the QR code on screen or visiting the link in the description. Every click helps support the channel and every purchase keeps you safer online. So although Joe did get NordVPN, it turns out Bristol City was a really good choice for Joe, because he's actually seen a lot of his attributes massively improve, like his finishing and acceleration are up to 16. His current ability is now 143, which means he's ready for the Premier League. Aston Villa are the team who have taken a punt on Joe, as they spent £14.5 million to acquire his services. Joe rewarded them by giving them his best goal-scoring performance so far. He was Villa's top scorer with 13 Premier League goals, but that was only good enough to help Villa to 9th in the table, missing out on European football. Joe's season was plagued with little injuries that meant he missed 14 Premier League games, which is over a third of the season. So he was scoring a goal pretty much every other game, and if he had stayed fit for the entire campaign, there's a really good chance that he would have got Villa into the European spots. Joe has once again made some leaps forward, particularly with his composure and decision making, which we speculated was a weakness of his in Season 1. His current ability is now 153, which makes him one of the best strikers in the league. And he's also just beaten Max Dowman to the Next Gen award. And given he's got over 100 years of eligibility for this, I suspect he's going to win quite a lot. I wonder how many subscribers I'll have in 100 years' time as well. I guess if you all press subscribe right now, you can all say you were part of the first 100 million subscribers. Probably. But if we are going to fit over 100 years of Joe's career in this video, we need to go a little bit quicker than this. In Season 25, Joe has one of his best Premier League campaigns, scoring 17 goals, finishing runner-up in the Golden Boot. Incredibly, he is still playing for Aston Villa, even winning a title with them in 2034. Since then, they've dropped back towards the mid-table and have just finished 9th in a season where Luton Town have made the Europa League and Spurs have been relegated. So this is Joe now, and the first thing that strikes me about him is that he's not as good as I thought he would be by this point. Don't get me wrong, he's got great finishing and composure and pace and acceleration, but a lot of his technicals are pretty mediocre. His mentals, I mean, they're not bad, but they could be better, and I just think he could be better. The interesting thing here is that his current ability is 155, so nowhere near the 200 that we've set his potential ability to be. And it's been stuck at 155 for a long time now, so I think because he is perpetually 14 years old in game until he actually turns 15 in, what's that going to be, 2140, he is capped, I think he's capped at 155. I don't think he can go higher than that. It must be some sort of thing in the game to make sure a regen doesn't come through that is so incredible they are the best player in the world at that age. Also interesting to note that he's getting comfortable on the right wing, and he's also been played a few times at centre midfielder over the years. And I'm going to assume this is because, although he's been at Aston Villa for, what, like 23-ish years now, something like that, lots of players are going to come and go in that time. So I'm sure at some point, there were better strikers than him at Aston Villa, which meant he was pushed on to the right wing. I am very confused as to why he's just stayed at Aston Villa. He is currently wanted by West Ham, so clearly there is transfer interest in Joe. My assumption coming into this was he'd be moving clubs like every 5 years, and we'd see him have like 3 separate spells at Arsenal or something like that, and, you know, go off to play for both Real Madrid and Barcelona, Inter and AC Milan, but clearly he just bloody loves Birmingham, which is a sentence that I don't think anyone's ever said. No way. I'm just looking through his information. Turns out he's got a brother in game, this guy called James Davies, who's obviously a regen, and plays for Chesterfield and is transfer listed for 4.2 million. Current ability 120, so a pretty poor championship player at best. Of course, we need to have a look and see what Joe has won, and he's won a lot of individual awards. So he's the runner-up in Next Gen, won Next Gen the year before that, won Next Gen the season before that. Oh my word, look at this. So Joe just keeps winning Next Gen all the time, which makes sense, I guess, in a way, because I believe Next Gen is kind of geared towards players being 18 and under, and they're looking for the teenagers who are going to be amazing in the future kind of thing. I'm interested in European Golden Boy, and by looks of it, he's won it once in 2027. I feel like he should have won more of these maybe by this point. He's got a really high reputation as well, so it's not a reputation thing. I think the game just doesn't quite know what to do. Doesn't know what to do with Joe. As we approach the 22nd century, Joe is somehow still playing his football for Aston Villa, and will go down as one of the most loyal footballers of all time. Joe now has 879 Premier League goals across his 73 seasons for Aston Villa, which, if I'm honest, is a lot less than I was expecting. However, that does equate to scoring a goal every 2.5 matches, which is a pretty solid record. So here he is at the turn of the century and looking like a very different player to the one that we saw previously. His technicals, I think his technicals are even worse than they were before, actually. I think he's dropped off a lot there. His mentals have massively improved. We've got a few 20s in there as well, and his decision making and composure way up. And his physicals have kind of changed a little bit. He's still very fast, still quite quick to get running, but he just can't jump now. 1 jumping reach. I wonder what's happened to make that a thing. His current ability is still 155. It will not go higher, and I suspect it's not going to get any higher until he actually starts aging in another 50 odd years or so. So it's actually fascinating to see how his player profile is changing and how the game is trying to cope with the fact that Joe's now been playing for 75 years, bless him. And interestingly, he has still not played a single game for Wales. Again, this must be something to do with the age being 14 years old and the game not quite knowing what to do with him. He's also starting to pick up a lot of player traits, and I feel like a few of them are now getting slightly contradictory. Incredibly then, he has still spent all of his time at Aston Villa, and actually, he is playing 30 games a season most seasons. He started all 37 this season, started 35 the season before that, so he is currently like the main man at Villa, until you get this one season they had in the Championship, where he made 3 appearances and scored 4 goals, but that was it. Which makes me think, at this moment in time, Joe maybe tried to get a transfer, and they wouldn't let him have a transfer. So I like to think he refused to play for the club, which is quite hilarious. I'd love to know exactly what happened there. I was really hoping we get to see him play for so many different clubs. It just doesn't look like it's going to happen. So he's won 6 Conference Leagues now, quite a lot of Community Shields, 3 Carabao Cups, 5 FA Cups, 4 Europa Leagues, just the 1 Champions League still, and how many Premier Leagues? 3 Premier Leagues now, 2075, 2078 adding to the 2034. Wow. That's incredible. He's also now won 44 Next Gen awards, which is incredible, but it does seem to be like he's too young to win anything else. FIFA Best Under 21 Men's Player only twice, European Golden Boy only 5 times. I wish he could get stuck at like 18 years old and not 14, because I think at 18 we'd see him win so many more individual awards. The year is 2141, and Joe is now 15 years old. He's no longer playing for Aston Villa. In 2105, he moved for £51 million to Bournemouth, and has just played out his 36th season at the club. It's been a good move for him, as he's won 5 Premier League titles and 2 Champions Leagues with the Cherries. They've just finished 3rd in the table, the 22nd time they've finished 3rd or 2nd in the Premier League since Joe joined the club. So they're basically the 22nd century's Arsenal, although they have actually won some stuff. So here he is, 15-year-old Joe. It's taken 117 seasons to get to this point, but he is now 15 years old, bless him. A lot to unpack here. He still can't jump, but the rest of his physicals have improved a little bit. Mentally, honestly, he's got to be one of the best mental players of all time. He's got a few 20s in there, everything's really high. He's just let down by the fact that his technicals are atrocious. I think they just keep getting worse, like tackling 1, penalties 5, long throws. I mean, they're not important, I guess. The finishing's important, but his dribbling has dropped dramatically to just 7. Heading, he's not really a threat at all, particularly the 1 jumping reach. It's a real shame. Now, this is something I have never seen in Football Manager, but he's got this on his selection details. This player has a recurring injury that is aggravated when playing matches. This will result in him being unfit to train for a short while after taking part in matches. He's got to do or does not train. I have never seen this on any player ever. So his current ability is still 155. I'm hoping this is now going to start rising as we move forward and he actually now starts to get older. Now he's 15 years old, he's also starting to get youth caps for Wales, despite still being, I think, probably the best player Wales have got. And like I said earlier, he's won plenty of trophies at Bournemouth, but if we look at his past few seasons, he looks like he's a bench player. The worst part is they play a 4-4-2, so there could be a place in there for him, but he has got Steven Tozer ahead of him, who is better technically, but I don't think he's any better than Joe overall. 164 current ability, so they're very, very similar players, and I would argue Joe is more effective as a striker. And then you've got Gallardo here as well, who, again, nowhere near on the level of physicality. He's even worse than Joe, 153 current ability, but he is starting more. That feels harsh on Joe here. I think Joe needs to leave. I think he needs to move on to a different club, but he is winning trophies here in a Premier League that looks similar but quite bizarre. Wrexham are up there, obviously. We've just seen Plymouth get relegated. You've got Stockport County in there as well, QPR back up, but it's actually pretty similar, really. And whilst the Champions League is also pretty similar, Le Havre, by the way, are one of the greatest teams in Europe. What a dynasty. Well, not quite a dynasty, but they've been prevalent at the top echelons of Europe for a long, long time. But Bournemouth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 runners-up in the last what's that, last 30 years or so? That's ridiculous. So he could have had so many more Champions Leagues if they just won. I mean, he's won loads of trophies now, 59 competitions throughout his career, but he could have had so many more by looks of things, especially because I said Bournemouth earlier. They've come, was it second or third, like 22 times since he joined? Also stacking up the individual awards as well, but the big one missing from here is the Ballon d'Or. He still hasn't won it. But to be fair, he's only just turned 15 years old. This is just the start of his career. I'm sure he's going to win it very soon. With the game now recognising that Joe has been born, he starts to age. As a result, his current ability finally starts to improve beyond 155. Over the next 5 seasons, he scores 48 Premier League goals in 146 matches. Again, he's missing games due to his now recurring injuries. He's also playing a lot more games in deeper roles, as over the last 120 years, he's gotten pretty much comfortable in every position. But despite all of his great play, he doesn't win another trophy until 21-46, when Bournemouth claimed their first title in 19 seasons, beating Fulham on goal difference. At 20 years old, Joe now looks unstoppable. He's a physical machine that can once again jump, and has better mental attributes than any other player could ever hope for. He is still being let down by his terrible technicals though. As a result, he's still not yet in any Ballon d'Or race. The following season, with Joe's help, Bournemouth become back-to-back Premier League champions, and he wins the Golden Boot in the process. He also helps them to the Champions League final, where they suffer yet another loss, this time to the German champions Bayern Munich. After such an incredible personal season for Joe, if there was ever a time for him to win the Ballon d'Or, it would be now. But instead, his teammate, Steven Tozer, who overall scored less goals, wins it instead. Joe isn't even in the top 3. Instead, he has to settle for just his 3rd FIFA Best Under-21 Men's Player Award. This should be the point where Joe kicks on and starts to claim the Ballon d'Or trophies. But that isn't what happens. Joe's loyalty becomes a hindrance to his career. As Bournemouth start to sell off their stars, they start to drop down the table and they aren't involved in title fights. In 21-49, they lose in the 93rd minute of the Champions League semi-final to Hamburg. In 21-50, they lose the Conference League final to Athletic Club. And then in 21-53, despite Joe giving Bournemouth the lead in his 129th season, they lose the Europa League final to Villarreal. In the same season, they slump to 9th in the Premier League, and Joe looks further away from winning a Ballon d'Or than ever before. So he needs to forgo his loyalties and make a change. Now 27 years old, Joe moves to Fulham for 148 million, which, yes, does sound very strange, but remember, we are 130 years in the future. By this point, Fulham have won 3 Premier Leagues, 4 FA Cups, a Conference League and a Champions League in the last decade. They are very good. So good, in fact, that Joe has one of his most productive seasons yet. He scored 23 goals and collected 15 assists across the season. All of those goals helped Fulham win their 4th Premier League title ahead of Leicester City. Joe also helped Fulham make it a double when he scored past Man United in the FA Cup final. Then came the Champions League final, where Fulham took the lead 8 minutes in. Atletico Madrid levelled the scores half an hour later, and the game was looking like it was headed to extra time. But with 10 minutes to go, Joe arrived at the right moment to score the winner and secure Fulham their first ever treble. This is one of the highlights of Joe's very long career by this point, so surely this is the moment he claims the Ballon d'Or. Joe starts the next season at breakneck pace, scoring goals every week to try and cement his name in the history books. Blood, sweat and tears went into his every performance, and it was all for nothing. He didn't even finish in the top 3, let alone win the Ballon d'Or. Genuinely, I think Joe is cursed. I don't know what else he can do to win it. Joe plays another 7 seasons with Fulham, and he wins another 3 Premier Leagues, 3 FA Cups and a League Cup. But as he gets older and his recurring injuries get worse, he never gets another shot at winning the Ballon d'Or. So if at the start of the video you guessed Joe would win 0 Ballon d'Ors, sadly, you are correct. Now that he's technically 36, Joe reckons it's time to hang up his boots. So I've done the maths, this is what he won. Joe collected 76 trophies, including 5 Champions Leagues, 6 Europa Leagues, 7 Conference Leagues, 5 European South American Challenges, 4 UEFA Super Cups, 14 Premier Leagues, 15 FA Cups, 10 League Cups, 9 Community Shields, and the 1 Championship. I'm just shocked that he spent 135 years of his 138-year career at 3 clubs. I really thought he'd be moving all over the place and we'd have so much to talk about with that. As it turns out, he just bloody loves England. Joe never did win a Ballon d'Or, but in this video, I tried to get a goalkeeper to win it. I became the agent of a goalkeeper playing in the Caribbean, and my goal was to give him sensible moves to progress his career and move closer to winning football's ultimate prize. Click the video on screen right now to see if I can guide a goalkeeper to winning the Ballon d'Or.